we're going to get right into this from the tippy top. So, Asuka this past year competed in her 5th WrestleMania match, and with her loss to Bianca Belair, she is currently 0-5 at the show of shows. But this time, she had a new presentation in character. So, do you believe that she has been ruined because of how she's been booked over the past 5 years?
Yes, and it started with Charlotte, and it continued with Bianca, and it sucks because I adore Bianca, but I just feel like you got to call a spade, and I feel like there's the 4 horsewomen at top, and there's Bianca, and there's supposed to be Asuka, and the people who say Asuka and mention her is because we watched her work in NXT, and we know what she's capable of, and if you obviously are like a fan of like, stuff that's in Japan, then you know who Kana is. And I just feel like, all right, Triple H treated her like perfect. He booked her perfectly. She never looked more dominant and threatening than in NXT. And she came up in the main roster, and then, Charlotte slaughtered her because, Vince McMahon is who he is. You know what I mean? And she never quite recovered. After that, she just kind of became like just this gimmicky act, which you know how Vince McMahon is when it comes to Asians. I don't know why, but he likes to do this thing where he makes them all look crazy. I think Gail Kim even referenced this before in an interview where like he just boxes them into like stereotypes. And the thing is that Asuka was a little crazy in NXT, but it was because she was actually threatening crazy, whereas she came off like a goofball for a lot of her run, And I just feel like as a fan, I'm over here just like waiting for her moment, for her to shine, and for her to feel like the way she felt at NXT. So when she came out with this Kana character, I was so excited. I'm like, all right, like this is a new era of Asuka. I like that. Like Hunter, like you're bringing back the NXT Asuka, and it's just like the only way you could have had established this character is to make this new threatening character, right? Because, like, I'm not saying she's a mythical character, but she's supposed to be a rarer form of Asuka, correct? A more threatening form of Asuka. If she can't even take out Bianca, then I just feel like the character can't be established as being threatening. It's kind of like our argument with Finn Balor. Even though, again, I know he's a demon, so that's a little different. But I feel like what's the point of showing up in your rarer form and trying to establish a superstar and putting this feud together and they can't deliver? Because she hasn't won. She could have benefited from at least one. And I'm not blaming Bianca for this. I'm not saying she's selfish. I'm not saying she's not giving back to the division. Let's not make that this argument, y'all, because y'all been hammering my girl on Twitter saying that she's selfish and she's been hogging the title. There's nothing to do with Bianca. I understand why they gave it to Bianca because she had a show to go on after with the title. And it was all about sponsorships and presentation. And it's easier to have someone who looks marketable like Bianca with the belt as opposed to someone that's like painted and colorful like Asuka and the language barrier issues. I understand that much, but I just feel like you're wasting Asuka at this point, and I don't even understand why she's here. I don't. At this point, I feel like she needs to go to a different promotion because she's not being utilized properly, and she feels very regular. And it makes me upset because she's not regular. Nothing about her moveset, nothing about her look, nothing about her is regular, but besides the way that they choose to present her. It makes me upset. So I was not happy with the finish. The match itself was good. It was definitely hard hitting. I wouldn't put it at the top 5 matches for WrestleMania, to be honest. But it was a good match, but it would have been better if she won. Or if she lost, follow what Jordan had mentioned from the last podcast we had, where she does something heelish afterward and attacks Bianca, which we didn't get. So it's just like, what was the point of pulling this out? Were you trying to just do it for the presentation and the entrance and the theatrics? What was the point? Was it because you guys don't know how to tell a story with Asuka because she's Asian? Like there's so many questions to ask, and it gets me more frustrated because she's not hard to book. She's not. Just let her be, let her do her thing, let her dominate, and let the character speak for herself. That's my ick. But I want to hear your take on it.
So I actually agree with you. I do believe that Asuka has been ruined in some sense, and I think that the beginning of the end was her losing her streak at Mania, as far as her undefeated streak and Charlotte beating her. Um, it's funny. It's funny because some of these booking decisions, I could understand why another person won, but at the same time, I also understand that Asuka was going to suffer as a character as a result of that. You know what I mean? And so I think that is just really, really unfortunate because I think that Asuka, like you said with the Gail Kim character, well, not the Gail Kim character, but what you said with Gail Kim, as far as her comments regarding Vince McMahon, as far as putting, women of color in the box. And she said, I remember specifically Gail Kim said something along the lines of, it's not about, you know, the type of people that you have in your company. It's about who you position at the top, because it says a lot about who you deem as a main event player. And, if you're always putting, white women at the top, if you're always putting a blonde hair, blue eyed woman at the top, then it shows you what she sees as a top performer. And seeing only top performers that are white in WWE paints the perception that they only perceive those people to be top players. Now, we've gotten Bianca Belair, we've gotten Sasha Banks and Bayley in the past few years, and we have some exceptions to the rule. But the fact that Asuka was presented as this dominant woman in NXT and booked correctly down there because of Triple H, and when she gets to the main roster, she's kind of fumbled, just kind of shows you, I believe, how Vince McMahon saw Asuka more than anything. Now, granted, we got this new repackaged, great presentation of Asuka now, but part of me feels like even if she were to win at this Mania, I think it's too little too late, because you've put her up against some of the best women on the biggest shows, and you've had her lose pretty much every time. And so I think that because of that, even before her versus Bianca Belair, she wasn't necessarily heavily favored, and she wasn't necessarily booked correctly. And that's really just like my opinion on Asuka. And I think she even had like a tweet where she was like, I'm 0-5. Like, what would y'all feel like if I went to Japan and treated correctly? Like, and she has a right to be frustrated, because she is one of those women that are that good, that great even, and always puts on great matches regardless of what position you put her in. She's always at least attempted to make it work. So I just think that they did ruin kind of Asuka's mystique and dominance and power, and it's just really, really a shame to see. But I definitely want to hear everybody else's take on it, as far as what you believe about Asuka's